Hello, hello. Welcome back to undergraduate seminar. This talk is Time and Energy Conserved, the effects of COVID-19 on U of T staff and students. This is a project supervised by Professor Lisa Jeffrey for students Sharon, Alex, Faiza, Robbani, Yunni, Yushu. Take it away, folks.
Also Charles Sweeney.
Oh, also Charles.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Hi, we are Faiza, Sharon, Yunni, and Yushu, and we are here to talk about the advantages of working remotely. Can we get the slide to change, please? So the study was designed to estimate the amount of time and energy that would be saved by remote learning, teaching, and by conferences. So as a result, we divided our research into two parts where staff and students from UofT were the focus of the first study, so the study from Sharon and I, and the online versus in-person conferences were the focus of the second one. So Sharon and I will be discussing the first half of our presentation, and we'll be discussing the findings from a study that we've conducted starting the summer of 2022. So data was collected through surveys administered to students from all three campuses and staff at the UTSC. And we tried to estimate the amount of time and energy both students and faculty would be able to save if they were to work and study at home. So Yunni and Yushu will be presenting their findings on the second part of the project, where they look at how much time and energy could be saved by holding online conferences instead of in-person ones, with open attendance from American Math Society. So they predicted the possible commute plan and estimated the energy costs based on the commuting.
Okay, so to proceed with our study, we first administered a survey targeted towards UofT faculty and students to get their take on the advantages or disadvantages of working remotely in a post-pandemic world. Even though the interest in a hybrid workplace existed before the pandemic, this idea became even more prevalent during and after the pandemic. While the pandemic was ongoing, it was much safer to hold classes online and work entirely from home. However, after the pandemic, it seems that there were more talks about considering changes in the workplace and academia for making room for working from home. This is mainly due to convenience, saving money on commute, and getting to spend quality time with family. This project will attempt to estimate the following: how much time could be saved by working from home, referring to the time spent commuting, and how much energy can be saved by learning or working from home.
As mentioned, our target population was staff and students from each campus of the University of Toronto. So we administered a series of relevant questions that we sent out using Google Forms to this population, and we were able to recruit these participants through online platforms, for example, group chats from clubs that we are participating in, including face-to-face as well as face-to-face conversations on campus. So to motivate these students to complete the survey, participants were informed that they would be entered in a raffle for a chance to win a $10 gift card from Tim Hortons. And our data analysis was made using Microsoft Excel. So we were able to obtain a response from 151 students who attend any three of UofT campuses. And in this graph here, we can see that majority of the people that we got the response from were from UTSC, while a small minority were from the other two campuses, St. George and Mississauga. So let's look at some insights from the survey. So in this section here, we take a look at the amount of time it takes students to commute to UofT campus, so any of the three, and we will then try to work out how much time can be saved on the commute if there was an option to study and attend class remotely. So the following bar chart here, we can see that over 100 students from our 151 respondents, they use public transit as their primary mode of transportation. And just over 25 people, they use a personal vehicle, most likely a car, as their primary mode of transportation. So we also asked students that if there was an option to attend class online, would they be likely to choose that option? And we see here that we got a varying responses. So majority of the people, they did say it was very likely, while we still see that a lot of people saw that it was unlikely that they would choose the remote option. So this is all from personal preference, with many factors affecting this decision. One could be that students choose remote learning so that they can use the other time to do other valuable things.
Okay, so the following graph on the left displays information regarding the average time it takes for students to reach campus from home. So our data points have a unimodal distribution, and this means that the value representing the highest point is also the most frequently occurring value in our data set. We can also tell by looking at the graph there are some outliers, which indicates that it takes some students a much longer time to commute to campus. These outliers are located to the far right side of our graph. But however, majority of the values lie within an interval of 0 to 100 minutes. The graph on the right side displays information regarding average time it takes for students to reach home from campus. Once again, our data points are unimodal distribution, and we can tell this there's one outlier all the way to the far right, and this indicates that it takes these students a longer time to commute from campus back home. So we proceeded to calculate the total time spent commuting, and we see that the average total time spent commuting daily across all the survey respondents is approximately 82 minutes, with a few outliers corresponding to times of 210 minutes or 330 minutes. So this graph allows us to see if there is any between the time it takes to commute and the method of travel. We can tell that the average commuting time for public transit is much higher than the average commute time by car, Uber, or bike. We previously stated that students responded to our survey spend 82 minutes on average commuting daily. Then based on this graph, we can see that most of the students on average are on campus 4 days a week.
Okay, so now to put it all together, with all of the information being considered and knowing that it takes 82 minutes of commute to and from campus, if students were to be on campus 5 days a week, remote learning would be able to save them roughly 6 hours and 15 minutes on a weekly basis. So on campus for 4 days a week, they would save 5 hours and 28 minutes weekly. If they were to be on campus for 3 days a week, remote learning would save them 4 hours and 6 minutes on a weekly basis. 2 days a week would save them 2 hours and 44 minutes. And of course, 1 day would save them 82 minutes. So the amount of time that students save if they wake up and attend class remotely would be close to 2 hours on average. Then this corresponds to 120 minutes in the morning, in addition to the commute time if they were to attend class remotely. So there was also a number of students who mentioned that they would wake up. The time they wake up depends on when their class starts, which I'm sure is relevant to a lot of people here as well. For example, if their class were to start at 10 a.m., they would be waking up at 9 a.m. and so on.
Okay, so now moving on to how much energy can be saved. Public transport consumes far less energy compared to cars that run entirely on gas. For example, the TTC bus fleets mainly run on hybrid electric, clean diesel, and battery electric. These are environmentally friendly alternatives to gas. Although walking and biking to campus are the most efficient methods of travel, it is not convenient for most people who live far away from campus. Hence, resorting to a personal vehicle or public transport could be the best option. According to the Government of Canada, cars, vans, and light-duty trucks are responsible for almost half of the total 27% of greenhouse greenhouse gas emissions in Canada.
Sharon, can we go back to slide 14? Yeah, thank you. So carpooling with another person can reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 3.72 kilograms. So if you were to carpool for a year, this would reduce greenhouse gas emissions by approximately 893 kilograms. However, we see that in our data set, only very few people carpool, while majority of people take private modes of transport or even public TTC.
Okay, so the following graph shows that the data from our data set indicates, regardless of the method of transportation, the average amount of money saved weekly is approximately $50. And here we talk about Uber. So a study done by researchers at Carnegie Mellon University suggests that services such as Uber and Lyft leads to much higher levels of greenhouse gas emissions when compared to driving your own personal car. The reason is that rideshare drivers spend a lot of time driving alone without any passengers on board, and the amount of CO2 emissions will be significantly higher than taking a public or private mode of transport. And in our study, there were around 4 respondents from 151 who took Uber to campus, and the average amount of money they saved weekly if they were to learn online is around $138. So as we stated before, public transport is the cheapest way to commute in Toronto, and then it makes sense that the average amount of money saved when traveling by car or truck is much higher than public transit. And as of March 19, 2023, the price of 1 liter of gas in Toronto is approximately $1.82. So for vehicles that run entirely on gas, for every liter of gasoline a vehicle uses, it generates about 2.3 kilograms of CO2 emissions, according to the Government of Canada. And in our study, those who drove to school spend an average of $78.9 weekly to commute to campus. Then for the $78.9, you get approximately 43 liters of gasoline, and burning this much fuel generates on average 98.9 kilograms of CO2 emissions.
Okay, now looking at the same research question in a different population, let's look at the survey results from the faculty of UTSC. So our survey focused on getting responses from faculty in computer science, mathematics, and statistics department, so CMS, and we were able to administer a list of relevant questions that will help us answer the questions that we previously stated. We were able to obtain response from 17 faculty members from the CMS department at UTSC. So we asked the faculty members that given an option to work remotely, would they likely choose this option? And these are the responses shown in the graph here. So majority of the faculty members are very likely to choose the online option. However, we can see that a large number of them also said that they're unlikely to choose the remote option, similar to the students as well. So in this section, we take a look at the methods of transportation used by faculty members, as well as the time and money spent on commuting to UTSC. Majority of the 17 members use their own personal vehicle, for example, car, and quite a few people do use public transport as their main method of transportation. We can also see a mix of car, public transport, and even bicycle. So taking a look at the pie chart over here, in terms of the preferred mode of transportation, we see that there's a slightly more preference for using a personal vehicle rather than public transit. Approximately 47% of the faculty members chose a personal vehicle, 41% chose public transit, and the remaining 12% chose walking and biking.
Okay, so the next question we asked is, what method of transportation is most convenient in terms of saving money and time? The majority of the respondents chose a personal mode of transport, with approximately 59% choosing car and truck, and the remaining 41% choosing public transit. So the same as the student survey, in this section, we take a look at the amount of time it takes faculty members to commute to the campus. Once again, both graphs are Yunni model and they both have some outliers towards the far right. And comparing the two graphs, we notice an interesting fact that it takes longer for some faculty members to actually travel back home from campus than to campus.
So calculating the total time spent commuting, we can see that there's an average total time spent commuting. It's approximately 85 minutes. And there are also a few outliers with the time being 165 minutes to 180 minutes. Okay, so this following graph, we're able to see whether there's any relationship between the time it takes to commute and the method of travel. So we can see that the average commuting time for those taking public transit is much higher than those who commute using car. And in this figure here, we see that the majority of the faculty members are on campus for 4 to 5 days a week, which is a lot more than the students.
So now putting it all together, we previously stated that the faculty members that responded to our data spent on average 85 minutes commuting every day. Then for 4 days a week, if they were to work on campus, for 4 days a week, if they were to work remotely, they would save around 5 hours and 40 minutes weekly. And for 3 days, they would save around 4 hours and 15 minutes. And for 2 days, they would save around 2 hours and 15 minutes weekly. So comparing these two graphs, we notice that there's not much difference in the time that the faculty members wake up depending on in-person or online work. The time for both seemed to stay consistent for the most part, although there were a couple of faculty members who said they'd wake up an hour, 2 hours, or half an hour earlier if they had to commute. So this factor will definitely contribute a little to the amount of time saved if given an option to work from home.
So as mentioned before, public transport consumes less energy compared to cars that run entirely on gas. TTC bus fleet are mainly hybrid electric, clean diesel, and battery electric, and these are environmentally friendly alternatives. Regardless of the method of transportation, the average amount of money that would be saved weekly would be $54. And for those who drove cars and trucks to campus, we found that they spent an average of $72.70 weekly, meaning this much money would have also been saved on average if they were to work from home. So with that $72.70, approximately 40 liters of gasoline and burning this much fuel generates an average of 92 kilometers of CO2 emission. So this is how much energy gasoline would also be burning with that money. Thank you very much for listening to our presentation, and we hope that this has made everyone reflect on their method of transportation when it comes to reaching any destination. We will now pass it on to Yunni and Yushu to hear about their talk about online conferences. Thank you once again.
Hi, for part two, we want to talk about the impact of online conferences on the environment, especially on the context of COVID-19 pandemic. From this product, we want to estimate the energy saving by simulating two international conferences. In this presentation, We will cover the following topics. The first one is the motivations. Why online conferences are important for reducing our carbon footprint. The second part is data. The environmental impact of attending conference in person and the carbon emission associated with air travel, based on two samples of 200 international conference attendees. The third one is method. We will perform a data visualization on the distribution of the environmental impact of attending conference. The last but not least, the result, we want to illustrate the benefit of online conference, focusing on the positive environmental impact and economic cost. By the end of this presentation, you will have a better understanding of the advantage of an online conference and how they can help us to reduce our carbon footprint while still participating in important professional events. As we all know, attending conference can be an essential part of our professional development. However, the environmental costs of traveling for conference are significant. Air travel alone contributes to a considerable amount of carbon emissions that are harmful to the environment. The image you can see here. Okay. The image you see here shows an alarming trend, the steady increase in aviation emission over the past few decades. Furthermore, the COVID-19 pandemic has dramatically changed the way we work and travel. With many countries implementing travel restrictions and lockdown measures, it has become increasingly difficult for professionals to attend conference in person. The pandemic has forced us to rethink how we conduct our professional lives, including how we attend conference. One solution to this problem is online conference. The COVID-19 pandemic has also highlighted the potential benefit of hosting conference online, including reducing travel and cost saving. As such, there is a growing interest in exploring the feasible and potential benefits by moving attending conference. In this report, we aim to estimate the energy savings that could be achieved by moving attending conference. We hope to provide insight into the potential benefits and drawbacks of hosting academic conference online and help informal decision making around the hosting of academic conference in the future. The objective of this report are show as follows. First, we want to provide an estimate of the total energy consumed by academic conference, including the energy associated with air and train travel. Second, we want to explore the potential energy savings that could be achieved by moving academic conference online, including the energy saved from reduced travel and other sources.
So to estimate the energy savings that could be achieved by moving academic conferences online, we gather data on the energy consumption associated with air and train travel for the conference attendees. Specifically, we conducted web scraping on two international conferences websites, the American Mathematical Society, or AMS, and Canadian Mathematical Society, CMS, to collect information on attendees and their mode of transportation. We then randomly sampled 200 attendees from each conference to estimate the energy consumption associated with their travel.
Our data analysts allow us to estimate the total energy consumed by attendees for each conference, as well as the energy consumed per attendee. This information was then used to estimate the total energy that could be saved by moving the conference. For attendees who travel by air, we found the nearest airport from their affiliation and then calculate the distance from there to the destination airport. This allowed us to estimate the energy consumption associated with air travel for each attendee, based on the distance traveled and the energy efficiency of the aircraft. For attendees who travel by train, we use the data provided by the CNS to identify individuals from area around Montreal who were likely to have used trains to travel to the conference. We then estimate the energy consumption associated with train travel based on the distance traveled and the energy efficiency of the train. Using this information, We estimate the total energy consumed by attendees for each conference, as well as the energy consumed per attendee. We then use this data to estimate the total energy that could be saved by moving the conference. It is worth noting that our estimates are based on a simple random sample for attendees that do not account for the variation in travel patterns or other factors. However, we believe that our approach provides a reasonable estimate of the potential energy savings that could be achieved by moving a academic conference. To illustrate the data we collect and analyze, we have provided a snippet of the final data set on the board. To better understand the energy consumption associated with air travel, we categorize the flights into 3 distance categories based on their length: short haul, long haul, medium, and medium haul. These categories are defined as we list on the board. And we also categorize the flights into, we also estimate the energy consumption associated with each travel categories, with fuel consumption rates, which are also listed on the board. By categorizing flights in this way, we are able to be more accurately estimate the energy consumption associated with air travel and better understand the potential energy saving by moving an academic conference. Via Rail is a national passenger rail service in Canada, and it offers a range of train service across the country. The energy consumption of Via trains can be varied depending on a number of factors, such as the type of train, the route, and the occupancy rate. For the purpose of our study, we estimate the fuel consumption per passenger per kilometer for Via Rail based on our public available information. According to the Via Rail Sustainability Report, the average fuel consumption per passenger per kilometer for their long-distance trains was 0.0666 liters. This value was used in our calculation to estimate the energy consumption associated with train travel for attendees of the conference. To estimate the energy consumption associated with air and train travel for each attendee, we use the following formulas. For air travel, the fuel consumption rate varies based on the distance traveled. We use the categories for short haul, medium haul, and long haul to determine the appropriate fuel consumption rate for each attendee based on their distance travel. For train travel, we use a fixed floor consumption rate of 0.066 liters per passengers per kilometer traveled. Using these formulas, we were able to calculate the energy consumptions associated with each attendee's travel to the conference. This information was then used to estimate the total energy consumed by attendees for each conference, as well as the energy consumed per attendee. This allowed us to estimate the total energy that could be saved by moving the conference online.
Now we'll present our result. Here is a breakdown of the distance traveled by the attendees. These percentages give us an idea of the distribution of travel distances for the attendees of each conference. The majority of attendees for CMS traveled relatively short distances, with around half of the attendees traveling less than 1,500 kilometers. And the majority of attendees for AMS traveled relatively medium or short distances, with around 85% of the attendees traveling less than 4,099 kilometers. These histograms show the distribution of domestic flight distance for CMS attendees on the left and AMS attendees on the right. To compare the two histograms of flight distance, we can visually examine the shape, center, and spread of each histogram. The shape of flight distance distribution for CMS is right skewed, whereas the shape is left skewed for AMS. Note, this tells us that there is a high percentage of people traveling a smaller distance in CMS. The range for both distributions are similar, Both of the conferences have a range of about 5,000 kilometers. These histograms show the distribution of international flight distance for CMS and AMS. The shape of flight distance distribution for CMS is right skewed, whereas the shape is approximately symmetric for AMS. This tells us that there is a higher percentage of people traveling a smaller international distance in CMS. Note that the distribution for CMS is bimodal, so we won't be able to estimate the median based on the histogram. The range for both distributions are similar, with CMS distribution having a range of 17,500 kilometers and AMS having a range of 16,000 kilometers. And here are the histogram of distribution of total playing field used for CMS and AMS. The shape of both CMS and AMS distribution are right skewed. The range of the two distributions are both around 500 liters. Overall, the distribution of total playing field use are very similar for AMS and CMS. For the CMS conference, we know that a total of 14,178 liters of fuel were saved by attendees not flying. To determine the average fuel use per person, we divided the total fuel saved by the sample size 200, which gave us an average of 70.89 liters of fuel saved per person. For the AMS conference, we know that the total of 21,470 liters of fuel were saved by attendees not flying. To determine the average fuel saved per person, we divided total fuel saved by the sample size 200 again, which gave us an average of 107.35 liters of fuel saved per person. With the average fuel per person calculated from our sample, we're able to estimate the total fuel saved for the whole conference. The CMS conference, which had 690 attendees, is estimated to have saved approximately 48,911 liters of playing fuel. The AMS conference, which had 4,018 attendees, is estimated to have saved approximately 431,000 liters of playing fuel. In addition to air travel, events like CMS conference can also have a significant number of people taking trains as transportation to and from the event location. In our sample of 200 attendees from CMS, there were 45 of them from areas around Montreal that we think will take the train as their mode of transportation. To estimate the total diesel use for a population of 690 people, we can use a proportional method. First, we need to determine the proportion of attendees who take a train in the population. To do this, we divided the number of people who took a train by number of attendees, which gave us a proportion of 0.225. Next, we can use this proportion to estimate the total number of people in the population of 690 who would take a train. To do this, we multiply the total population size by the proportion, which gave us an estimate of 155 people who take a train. Finally, we can use the estimated number of people who take a train to estimate the total diesel use for the population. To do this, we multiply the estimated number of people who take train by the average diesel use from the sample. This yields a result of 4,827 liters. Now we'll put things into context. According to the U.S. Environmental Protective Agency, the combustion of 1 gallon or 3.78 liters of jet fuel produces approximately 9.57 kilograms of carbon dioxide. one liter of diesel produces 2.68 kilograms of the carbon dioxide. CMS will use an estimated of 12,900 gallons of jet fuel and 4,800.7 liters of diesel, resulting in the emission of 136,766 kilograms of carbon dioxide. AMS would use 10,000 gallons of jet fuel, resulting in the emission of 1,092,071 kilograms of carbon dioxide. To offset the amount of carbon dioxide emitted by CMS and AMS, we need to look at a way to remove an equivalent amount of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. One way to do this is by planting trees, as trees absorb and store carbon dioxide as part of this photosynthesis process. An average tree can absorb and store around 22 kilograms of carbon dioxide per year. Therefore, to offset the carbon footprint of CMS, we need to plant approximately 6,217 trees. Similarly, to offset the carbon footprint for AMS, we will need to plant approximately 49,639 trees. In conclusion, we have seen that the carbon footprint of events such as CMS and AMS conferences can have a significant impact on the environment. Virtual events can have a much lower carbon footprint than traditional in-person events, as they do not require transportation or other resources associated with physical gatherings. And we should continue to have the options for virtual events that's cost saving for both attendee and organizers, as well as having an increase in accessibility and a reduced travel time. Thank you, everyone. That's all we have for today, and we're open to any questions.
Yeah, any questions from the room? Any questions from online?
Parker, you should ask the question about the size of the US conference versus the Canadian conference. You asked me about that online.
Yeah. One thing I just noticed is, the American conference is like almost 10 times the size of the Canadian one, right? So a lot of these numbers scale by like a factor of 10. So yeah, just something I noticed. One question I had is, why did you assume that people would take trains? Right, that the people near Montreal would take trains instead of just drive.
So the people we said that are near Montreal isn't like the people that are in Montreal. They were like people, for example, from Waterloo, and also UofT, that we thought, taking plane, you have to, I don't know, wait for a long time in the airport or something. So that we think it's safe to assume that they will take the train instead.
Parker's question, why might they not have driven to Montreal instead of taken a train? And you didn't have information on that.
My hunch is that lots of people would drive. Taking a train, it's quite a bit more expensive than driving and takes about as long. But yeah, these are still interesting data points to have. It's still interesting to. So I'm thinking that the CMS would probably use more fuel or more carbon because cars are just less efficient than trains. But again, this was an assumption we made, right? That like, yeah, Gwen's got a question. Yep. Oh,
Thank you for that presentation. I'm trying to figure out where we're looking at, but yeah, it's really good, it's really insightful. I was just wondering, are there any suggestions or ideas or things you think the audience should take away from this presentation?
Sorry, could you please say a bit louder? It's
Gwen,
really
the microphone for us is
Having trouble hearing you. Okay.
Yeah, so just say thank you for the insightful presentation. I'm just wondering if there's any suggestions that you have after doing this research or anything you think the audience should take away regarding working remotely or meeting remotely.
Thank you for this question. So the purpose of this study is want to estimate how the economic by estimate how the cost in economics and environment if we assume this two conference and or during the COVID-19 all people were coming back travel in person and attending the conference in person. And by doing so, we are trying to show that during the COVID pandemic, there is a pros and cons for hosting the conference online and also providing online courses. So we want to help us to think maybe and also the COVID-19 pandemic also provide us a way to rethink maybe we in the future conference we can provide a more flexible way to combine the hybrid method to hosting the conference or the class as well as also providing the in-person one. So this, as we list in the beginning, this kind of estimation is a bit vague. So it didn't tell us very precise estimation on our data, but it kind of give us a direction how we and also a suggestion how we gonna host and consider for the conference and the class. Hope this will answer your question. Thank you very much.
Maybe I also have a follow-up question. So just playing kind of like the devil's advocate, like if somebody says the reason for going to conference to network and meet people, but if I do it online, maybe it's not as personable how I connect with people. In that case, like, do you think the conference organizers will provide a hybrid method of joining a conference? Or what's your prediction of how many people would join in person or how many would be online?
Thank you very much for your question. And that could be our, if we want to do a further research, we can focus more as, because the data set we collect is only, for the conference we collect, this conference is only offers the online options. So everyone is forcing to stay at home and to attend. We haven't got the data for analyzing the percentage of attending the conference online and versus percentage of attending conference in person. So maybe for the further analysis and for our next step, we can do is collecting those data for conference who offers hybrid options for researchers. And we can focus more on how people will balance their decisions on making more networks and rather than the saving more time and maybe the saving more time to to attending the conference online.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Cool, thank you. I want to remind people, if you're watching online, please fill out this survey. This is for the speakers to get feedback. I know that this is associated with a work study program that these speakers did. So please, please, please fill out the seminar feedback if you're watching online. If you're in person, it is very important that we have muffins and coffee. So please fill out this form, which will then go to Gwen at the end. So thank you very much. That was an awesome presentation. Next week, we have just an informal meeting. We don't have a speaker next week. We're going to talk about the direction that seminar is headed and what we want to do with seminar. And then on April 5th, we have our last talk, which will be about 3D graphics and a technique called ray marching. So talk about that. I hope to see you in person and online next week. Thanks, folks. Bye-bye.
So much. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.